Welcome to our CalSTRS and CalPERS Retirement Planning 101. If you're a teacher or an employee with the California State Pension System, this is a great resource to learn about your pension and how to maximize your retirement income, regardless of if you're a first-year employee or planning to retire soon. I've been working with educators for many years, and I'd like to pass on some valuable knowledge so that you leave with a better understanding about how your pension works, how to calculate your pension gap, and what you can do to avoid a loss of income at retirement. Today we'll cover what a pension is, the differences between the CalSTRS and CalPERS pension systems, how to calculate your pension payout at retirement, the defined benefit supplement, Social Security Windfall, pre-retirement counseling, and how to avoid a pension gap at retirement. But first, a little bit about myself. So what is a pension? Well, it pays you a taxable salary at retirement every month for the rest of your life. It's funded through a monthly payroll deduction while you're employed and invested for you by your pension administrator. In your case, CalSTRS or CalPERS. Here's an example of a STRS pay stub. This one happens to be from one of my clients in Long Beach, so if you work with a different district, yours may look different, but all the same categories are there. Here's where it shows the deduction for the pension both monthly and yearly, and below it, you'll see any pre-tax annuities that you might have. I also want to focus on the deductions column where it shows things like union dues, life insurance, disability, etc. I've often come across teachers who had several deductions they either weren't aware they had or didn't need. I've even often come across people who had disability coverage from two separate carriers, which isn't even allowed. Basically what happens is when you become a teacher, during your orientation, you're most likely approached by salespeople from companies like The Standard and others that sign you up for plans, whether you need them or not, and then you forget about them. Years later, another salesperson might show up at your school with pizza and sell you another plan without reviewing what you already had. So it's important to review these deductions with someone like myself who can go over the details with you and make sure they're things that you need. It also helps to compare options from several of these different providers before you choose, so you can pick the most affordable plan with the best coverage. All right, CalSTRS versus CalPERS. What's the difference? The CalSTRS pension system is generally for certificated employees like teachers, while the CalPERS system is generally designated for classified employees like administrators, counselors, and custodians. CalPERS enjoys full Social Security benefits while CalSTRS does not. So if you have CalSTRS, you will not be getting Social Security for this pension. We'll also be getting into Windfall a little later in the presentation. The age factor is also calculated differently between the two systems. Final compensation for CalPERS members is based off the highest average of 12 or 36-month full-time pay rate, depending on the member's collective bargaining agreement or employer contract. For CalSTRS members, it's based off the highest average of 12 or 36-month earnable compensation, depending on the member's years of service credits. Additionally, CalPERS does not have a supplemental DBS account, which we'll get into a little later. There are other differences between these two systems, but these are the most important ones in my opinion. If you'd like a full list of the different comparisons, you can go to this link here. All right, how it's calculated. You've got age factor times service credits equals the percentage of your final compensation. The age factor is the percent of final compensation you're entitled to for each year of service credit. This percentage is determined by the date you were first hired to perform CalSTRS or CalPERS credible activities and your age on the last day of the month your retirement is effective. So, to determine your CalSTRS age factor, there's an old system and a new system, depending on when you were hired. If you were hired before January 1st, 2013, you're on the old system, and due to economic changes, they had to restructure the system to make sure that everyone was still going to get their pension. So there's a new system for anyone hired after 2013. Under the old system, it's set at 2% at age 60, it's decreased if you retire before age 60, and increased to a maximum of 2.4% if you retire after age 60. There's also a 0.2% added in age factor if you have 30 years of service or more, but it's maxed out at 2.4%. With the new system, it's set at 2% at age 62, decreased if you retire before age 62, and increased to a maximum of 2.4% if you retire after age 65 instead of age 60. There's also no percent bonus after 30 years of service. Don't worry if this is a little confusing to you, we'll go over an example in a minute. Here we have a side-by-side graph comparison of the old system versus the new system, just so you can kind of get an idea of what it looks like. You can also find this on the CalSTRS website, which I have linked below. Here are the retirement ages and their corresponding age factors used in the pension calculation. So you can see how the numbers were reduced for the new system, requiring teachers to unfortunately work longer to get the same pay as before. So with CalPERS, instead of an age factor, it's called a benefit factor. It means the same thing, they just call it something different. And it has a few different formulas instead of just the two with CalSTRS. It depends on your collective bargaining. So here's a couple examples, but there's about 5 or 6 different ones. If you want to know what yours is under CalPERS, you can go to this link here. It'll say something like 2% at 55 or 2% at 60 or 62. These are just a couple examples, but we'll stick with the CalSTRS for now because it's a little bit easier. Okay, moving on to service credits. Full-time employees typically earn 1 year of service credit for teaching 1 school year. For part-time employees, service credit for 1 school year is the hours or days actually taught compared to the full-time equivalent, or what would be required if employed full-time in that position. Service credits may also be purchased under certain circumstances, but I don't usually recommend it. Okay, final compensation. For persons hired before January 1st, 2013 with 25 years of service or more, it's based off the highest year salary. For persons with fewer than 25 years of service or hired after January 1st, 2013, it's based off the average credible salary for the highest 3 consecutive years of service, which are normally your last 3 years. I also want to recommend that if you have the credentials, consider going into administration for a year to increase your highest year salary. Okay, now let's get into an example of how this works. John's retiring at age 62 with 30 years of service. Here it shows his age and his corresponding age factor. Because he also has 30 years of service, he gets a 0.2% bonus, maxing him out at 2.4%. So it's 2.4 times 30 equals 72%. So John will receive 72% of his highest grossing salary at retirement as his pension. There's also a 28% shortfall, which we'll get into later. The Defined Benefits Supplement Account. It's a CalSTRS only program that began January 1st, 2001. The DBS is a sub-account in addition to your CalSTRS pension, which is funded through your overload, extracurricular, summer school, and extra duty assignments. So just to clarify, all of the hours you work outside of the normal school day are not paid into your STRS pension. They instead go towards your DBS sub-account, which earns its own interest. It cannot be borrowed against, there are no rollovers, and there is no additional contributions allowed. The DBS benefits can also be distributed as a lump sum, an annuity, or a combination of both upon retirement, disability, or both. I highly recommend that when you're getting ready to retire, before you fill out the paperwork, talk to a trusted broker like myself to show you what annuity options you have with this money. The default option, if you don't immediately cash it out, is letting STRS move it into a holding account controlled by Voya, which earns you 0 interest. You don't want to do this. You can transfer it into an existing annuity you may already have or into a new IRA where you may be able to earn a 10% transfer bonus on it, as well as earn additional yearly interest and protect it from market loss as you take out an annual distribution along with your pension at retirement. If this sounds like a foreign language to you, don't worry. You can learn more about this in our Annuities 101 presentation. The Windfall elimination provision. If you paid into the Social Security system from previous employment before joining the district under CalSTRS, that benefit will be heavily taxed upon retirement. I highly recommend that you contact Social Security for the exact figures pertaining to you. Pre-retirement counseling. It's highly recommended that you schedule a pre-retirement conference when you reach age 55. You're eligible to pre-elect an option beneficiary at that point in your career. You can contact a CalSTRS or CalPERS counselor, refer to the member handbook, or go online at CalSTRS or CalPERS.com. But when you do go in for one of these appointments, be aware that they may try to upsell you on the CalSTRS Pension 2 annuity plan. Now, I've been told by many teachers that this happened to them, and they said it was kind of positioned by the counselor as something they had to do, or that it was just part of the normal procedure, but this is definitely not true. Let me be clear that CalSTRS operates their own TSA mutual fund annuity through TIAA, and it's optional, not mandatory. I actually have a whole other video called Conflicts of Interest and Questionable Relationships, where I dive further into this subject and provide further insight into other relationships between unions, school districts, TPAs, and insurance companies, that you can check out later. I'll also make sure to provide a link for it. You actually have about 40 different options available to you through your district under your plan administrator or TPA. For most districts that I work with, the TPA is Schools First Federal Credit Union. If you aren't sure what your TPA is, you can call your district payroll department and they should be able to easily tell you. So all of these options are available to you. Some are much better than others, and if you want to know how they compare, I again highly recommend that you speak with a trusted broker who's contracted with many of them, who can give you an unbiased comparison before you choose. Also, if you already have an annuity with one of these providers, it's a great idea to have someone like myself review that plan and compare with other options available to you. In most cases, I was asked to do this with the client. I was able to help them eliminate unnecessary fees and the risk of loss due to market crashes. Some of these plans also have great bonus options as well as ways you can pensionize your annuity so it'll never run out and last you the rest of your life. You can also visit 403bcompare.com to compare all your available options yourself, but I don't really recommend it because they're not always up to date. Okay, so why are we even talking about these supplemental plans? If I already have a pension, why do I need this? Well, remember our example with John? When he retires with 30 years of service, he's only going to get 72% of his pension. Let's assume he makes $100,000 a year. That means he's only going to get $72,000 as his pension, and that's before we deduct the federal and state taxes. Now, we don't want John to have any loss of income or lifestyle in his golden years, so compensating for that 28% shortfall is why most STRS and PERS employees choose to also put aside money into some kind of retirement vehicle like an annuity or an IUL. And actually, John's example is a little bit above average. Typically, teachers receive about 60% of their pension at retirement, with around 30 years of service. So it typically takes about 40 years of service to receive 100% of your pension. That leaves about 40% of a shortfall in income at retirement. So let's talk about how you can bridge that gap so you have no loss of your standard of living or lifestyle at retirement. I invite you to check out my presentation on annuities. This one gets way more into detail about what an annuity is, how to choose the right company, the different tax implications, annuity types, and your passive versus active investment options, as well as compound interest, what a fiduciary is, and how financial advisors get paid. That's it for this presentation. I hope you're a little bit more informed and confident about how your pension works and what to expect when you retire. Please remember to subscribe to our channel for other great videos covering everything from financial education, life insurance, as well as healthcare and other topics. And if you'd like to learn more about our services or to schedule a free consultation to start a new plan or improve your existing plan, please visit our website at setsailins.com. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.